I'm gonna share with you a book that will scare the heck out of you. This is called right here, "Come Nineveh, Come Tire" by Alan Drury. Actually, I picked this up when I was in Honduras. I think I've shared this book with you before, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. When I was stationed in Honduras, we're in Sotocano Air Base, which is like the base, and we're getting ready to go to Tiger Island. And I had 30 minutes or something like that to grab a book at the crappy old library they had in there. And I remember I was just rushing. So I had to go get chow, whatnot, before we get on the we're taking the Chinook. I can't remember, getting on the helicopters. I forgot. But anyway, I had to rush. So I went through the library real quick. I had no books to read. I said, let me grab a book or two, and I grabbed probably two or three. And I just happened to come across this because I like the cover, to be honest with you. And this right here changed everything for me. It really, this one book changed everything for me. And it scared the hell out of me, man. No other way around that. And it should you too. And I'm going to read you a passage from this book, Alan Drury. And it's let me just read it to you, and you can see it as it may. All right. So here's the United States president talking to the Soviet Union president. The president, he says, the Soviet Union, this is a quote from the U.S. president, a guy named Ted Jason. So he says, the Soviet Union has apparently violated every treaty, every arms control agreement, every understanding ever reached with the United States. How could you do such a thing when we trusted you? For just a moment, the chairman of the USSR, the Soviet Union, looked at him with an expression of such profound disbelief as to be almost comical. Then he shook his head in an amazed and wondering way. Oh, Mr. President, this is the head of the Soviet Union, he exclaimed with a wry, almost amiable regret. If the United States were not so evil, it'd be almost possible to feel sorry for it. So naive, so wishful, so childish. Treaties, agreements, understandings. Did anyone in America really think we would honor those things? Why on earth should we? When all we had to do was play upon the ego, the gullibility, and the infinite capacities for your self-delusion of your presidents, your Congress, your intellectual community, and your press. America has begged to be betrayed in these recent decades, Mr. President. Even if it had not been our intention, we should have been forced to oblige. How else could we have treated a great power whose controlling minds have had so little understanding of what it takes to survive as a great power in this harsh world? The race goes to the strong, Mr. President. Were we supposed to be in the business of being weaklings to save themselves? That is not the communist concept, I assure you. Then the American president says, what is a communist concept? To threaten the world with all this galaxy of horrors? And the president of the USSR says, we do not threaten. It is simply there. We wanted you to know it and that you might intelligently consider what to do next. After all, we don't have to convince the world if they see we have convinced the United States. They will fall in line soon enough. In fact, they're scrambling already. You would not believe the number of diplomatic approaches we have received in this past week while you have been so silent. A great shift is already underway in the world. I'm inclined to believe nothing you could do now in any way could reverse it. And anyway, what could you do now? Do you have any ideas? Anyway, he goes into it, and they got, like I said, their version. Hold on a sec. Come here, buddy. All right, we'll go outside. They got their version of Walter Cronkite, and I won't read it to you, but it's in the main, like in what's his name, Friedman, their version of Paul Krugman, Thomas Friedman, the New York Times guys, Walter Cronkites, whatnot, and then they got some of the communists who now control basically what happens is, and I'll just share it with you, the communists take over, but they don't take over externally, they take over internally. They're useful idiots of the press now becomes thrown into prison because the Henry Wallaces of the world, the internal people, the Alger Hisses of the world now control the U.S. and they control the media and they put those people away. And there's one quote which is freaking frightening, actually, where they say, the guy's like, "Look, I supported you." One of the Americans who have Henry Wallace, so he said, who basically takes over. And he said who's now just serving at the behest of the commies, and the guy named Walter Mobius, which is their version of like a Thomas Friedman. He says, I trust you. I did everything you asked. Why you put me in jail? He goes, do you think we need you anymore? We control it now. We control it. The press will write what I say. And then they show these headlines from the New York Times and Washington Post basically saying, if you can rabble rouse all day long, but you're a treasonous traitor and you will be met with the anger of the state. It's freaking scary, man. And you see just how radically and quickly the dominoes fall. And when I mean dominoes, it's just like the takeover. And then how many people just they go along with it. And again, it's just a piece of fiction, right? Is it really though? The how quickly people just go in line. It's without even shots being fired. It's crazy. And this is, again, during the height of the Cold War. I get that, but just what we're seeing now, man. How many people just fall into place because the authority of the public health department, who aren't elected, they're just bureaucrats. It's insane to me. It's insane. It's frightening in a way that I never thought I would see that in the United States. So many people just fall into line, and yet thankfully it wasn't the communists. But again, it was an external takeover. In fact, he talks about that. The communist guy goes, we didn't have to do it externally. We knew we could do it internally. Just in this, what do you think the Chinese are doing right now? Anyway, so you should read that. Now, for some of you who aren't as aware as you should be of the Russians, the communist, the tyranny that is under communism, here's another good book, Generations of Winter, Vasily I'm having a hard time reading that. Aksenov, I can't pronounce it. The great Russian novel of the 20th century equivalent of War and Peace. A freaking just incredible book here. Let's see. It's a story of a Russian family struggling to survive amid the convulsions of the Stalin era. Boris Gradov, the genteel patriarch, is a surgeon whose skill saves life, even if it implicates him in the conspiracies against the ruling circle. His oldest son is almost liquidated in the purges, only to be freed to command the decimated Red Army against the Third Reich. And his daughter, Nina, becomes passionately involved with both poets and party thugs as her ideological fervor gives way to irony and the grim determination to stay alive. These men and women woven together with such actual figures as Stalin, Beria, populate this triumphantly moving novel by one of the most acclaimed writers of the Soviet diaspora. Anyway, but there's tons of books. I mean, tons of books. Again, Victor Herman, coming out of ICE, I can't remember, but just so many books on the Soviet conquest, the attempt at conquest, and the just incredible destruction of his own people. It's sad, man, and yet people they're ignorant of it because everyone focuses on the Nazis. Well, the Nazis were short-lived, thankfully. Not short-lived for the people they murdered, but the communism is not short-lived. It's still here today. Still here today. They try to say the new Nazis are hungry. Okay, well, that's what the left try to say. That's nothing compared to what's come down what is here today, the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, just the communisms are not dead by any stretch of the imagination. They're not. And to put the moral equivalence to hungry Orban and Hungary, it's just freaking stupid, man. But when we see the devastation communism has brought upon the world, and what it's still doing today, as we say here today, right now, how they control the World Health Organization, they control many in academia. It's bad stuff, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people are ignorant about it, and so because they're ignorant, they're asleep at the wheel, and they shouldn't be. So anyway, I'll put links in the show notes. The Drury book is man, you'll read that a freaking weekend. It's scary, no other way around that. Generations of Winter is just one of the many books I've read on the Soviet coming out of ICE. I think that's what the Victor Herman book was. On top of the Gulag Archipelago, just tons of stuff on that. Rebecca West. Man, the list goes on and on. Paul Hollander, Political Pilgrims. There's just so many different books you can read on how bad the not just communism was, but the intellectual on our side in America who are sympathetic towards it and who advance the cause. And when you put all that together, and then you read Alan Drew's book, you're like, man, how did we survive? You know what I'm saying? And then you think, can we survive again? It gets pretty scary, and that's the. But it takes you got to, if you're ignorant about it, you don't think about it. But so you got to wake up and wake people up, and you do that in a way that just says, maybe throw a book at them or something like that. Anyway, or just, give a talk on how, like, just a casual reference to say, yeah, do you know what they did? And you don't have to do it. I don't know how you do it, but a casual reference to the evils that is communism. And I think hopefully people's minds will be changed one by one. All right, we'll see you.